Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look here at Bitcoin. Big surprise, see what's going on here on this Friday. And hopefully help you understand best practice, big picture, and of course, what's going to happen next? Where is this going to go? Now there's a few different thoughts, of course. I'll throw that out there, as we get started. But if you are new to the channel, I just kind of throw a quick disclaimer out there. Big surprise, I'm not a financial advisor. I've just been trading for over 16 years, and I love teaching people how to trade. So I hope you can learn something here today, and that, of course, you can walk away feeling empowered with more information. That's the whole point here, isn't to try to baffle you with big words, it's to try to teach you what they mean and how it works. So that being said, if you want to become a better trader, I do have a trading academy. CryptoCache.tech is a site. Link in the description below. Military and third world country discounts. Feel free to message me if you have any questions or concerns about that. I also have actually a signal group where I send out signals for the trades that I take, so you can kind of structure your trades effectively. And also a community we all learn and grow together. Awesome, awesome experience. So taking a look here at Bitcoin. Some obvious stuff here we can go and acknowledge, right? So, once again, elephant in the room here, big picture, we are looking at the 50-day SMA working concurrent with this trend line here. In other words, this trend line will likely just continue lower until it hits this, until we hit a breaking point, right? In other words, the price action can only go so low for so long. All right, there's an inevitability it's going to happen. Once we break above this trend, then we'll probably be in a range where we're going to be trading sideways for some time, and then we'll experience some ascending behavior. Before we get there, though, we have to break that trend line. So just keep in mind, this is a big thing to really understand that we are not in a position where the price is going to just instantly recover. You would like to think so, of course, with it being so low. How could it not go any higher? But again, there's a lot of selling pressure and just things we want to acknowledge. We'll look at that here, of course, and much more. But what I'm getting at is that this trend line is something we need to acknowledge and recognize that until we get back up above that, we don't have much of a leg to stand on. I don't think we're going to see any strong momentous trends. We're probably going to be range bound for the next couple of months until we break up above that naturally. It's generally what we're looking at there, okay? So again, it's just something to kind of think about. And big picture here, we're taking a little while, all right? We can also take a look at the cloud too, because oftentimes the cloud will work with descending trend lines. You can kind of see that the cloud is working kind of close to that. Now, generally speaking, I like to use this on the hourly because it gives us better understanding of where the price is going to go in the immediate future. But generally speaking, being under the cloud in the big picture is disadvantageous. So until we're back up above that as well, even on the daily, then we don't really have much of a leg to stand on. Okay. Obviously, this tells us if you have a short position, you want to keep it open. But again, if a couple months down the road here, the price action is still in this range, this lagging span will intersect with the price action, inevitably telling us to close our short position if we have one. And again, this is a very, very big picture view here when it comes to the cloud. I do recommend smaller time frames, but generally that's kind of telling us a lot right there. Okay, so just kind of confirming that trend line. Now, we can look at the monthly, of course. There's not much to really note here except we have a very strong red month. One thing to keep in mind here as well, and this is not a guarantee, but we've had, every time we have three red months, it's always followed by 2 green months. Okay, so hey, consolation, we might see a couple of green months here soon. Anyways, that's a bit of a stretch, but that is a pattern, of course, and patterns do have a tendency of repeating themselves. So there's that. We also need to acknowledge as well that we are below the 50-day SMA right now. That's not a great sign. Granted, this month hasn't closed yet, so it's not a guarantee. We gotta just kind of wait and be patient. But generally speaking, the only time the price has gone under that 50-day SMA is right back here when we had COVID back in March of 2020. So roughly 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, we saw a very similar pattern because of world events. All right. So keep in mind, there are some world things happening right now causing this, such as inflation, making up for that COVID stuff, that COVID crisis. So in turn, we're kind of reaping the, I wouldn't say rewards, it's the exact opposite of that, right? We're essentially reaping what we've sown, right? So we're paying back those debts, so to speak, with inflation, and that's essentially why we're seeing the price action lower than it should be right now. But hypothetically, 20,000, 19,800 should be the lowest point, which we'll see, because notoriously, Bitcoin has always come back down to retest its previous all-time high and use that as a support level. So we want to kind of go into that impression. That being said, though, Oh, sorry, I misdrew here. Misdrew. That's the trend line we're looking at, 20,000. The other, of course, and I've touched on this as well, another extreme worst case scenario is if you were to kind of zoom in and kind of see here, back in 2019, roughly 3.5 years ago, once again, almost a 4-year cycle here, we're looking at 14,000 as the potential support level, because that was a previous resistance. Okay, so 14,000 and 12,500 would be the next key levels if we do lose 19,800. Okay, and I wouldn't say it's going to be a free fall, but it's pretty safe to presume, with there being such low volume in this area here, that there would be a gap getting filled by doing so. Okay, so in other words, the price it spent 5 days in the range of 15 to 20,000. Okay, so again, it went up 25% in one day, or essentially 1 week rather. And if the price were to come back down, it's not going to be, it's going to be interesting. Either way you look at it, there's not a tremendous amount of price in this area, maybe a couple weeks worth of volume at that price point. So once again, 20,000 may or may not hold. We don't know for sure. It does feel like it wants to though, and here's what I want to kind of touch on here as well. We can look at smaller time frames to identify this. If we look at kind of just generally speaking, the overall sense of volume here and where it's accumulating, we can see obviously there's a lot of volume accumulation up here, right up at the 30,000 mark. That was before we lost that support. But now we can kind of see there's a decent amount of volume if we kind of look in the last, how many trading days is this? About 2 weeks worth of trading. You can see a large amount of volume at 21 and 20,000. So between 20 and 21,000, tremendous amount of volume, kind of helping us understand that, with that increase in volume, we have potential support here. In other words, in time that could dissipate, but for now it's going to likely hold. So that's why I feel comfortable taking a trade right in the 20,000 range to potentially have targets at 21, 22, 23. Those are just some round numbers, but generally speaking, if you have good tight profit targets here, we're probably going to be range bound for some time. Once again, between 20 and 24,000. So buy low, sell high, buy low. It's basically one of those scenarios there. So in that sense, be cautious and careful, of course, what you're looking at, and what you're doing here, because there's no guarantees. Yes, we keep retesting this level, but I do feel as if previous high could work as a strong support level moving forward, and it's proven to do so far. Okay, again, with this increased amount of volume at this price point, tells us there's a lot of buying pressure as well as the selling pressure. So again, those two are one's going to inevitably give up, and of course, if things in the world get better here in the next couple of weeks, which may not happen, but it'll probably be more like a couple months, then we'll see the price come back up. Okay. You got a lot of little things going on. Let's go back to the 1 day and just kind of wrap up a couple of quick little factors here. We're still under 70 on the under 30 on the RSI. And traditionally speaking, we stay under that for some time until we break back up above. In other words, it's usually about a week or two. So I would say we're probably going to see the price action trend around 20,000. This weekend may very well be a green weekend, just based on the simple fact that today appears to be a profit-taking day. We can see the price, as soon as the market opens, price went down. In fact, when we touch on the NASDAQ and the traditional markets, it's kind of breaking even though we got somewhat of a gap up from the close. So if we look at the 4 hour, we can see, it gapped down for pre-market. So in other words, with the price action kind of being green here today so far, that helps us understand more specifically that we're not in terrible shape in that sense, with the traditional markets kind of going sideways. If they were to, essentially, then that would essentially give us a much better potential situation. So in other words, 2 days in a row here at this price point is helpful. I'm not saying it's great, it's a mere consolation, but it is definitely something to acknowledge in the fact that traditional markets are not red today, and we're not seeing a significantly red day today. While we are seeing a hammer down here or potential dragonfly doji, which are typically ominous and do signal a downside, it could also potentially be telling us that, hey, this price is averaging itself out there. All right. Again, a handful of different things you could say here, but generally speaking, the daily, the longer time frames, monthly, weekly, and daily, are all screaming that we're still in the downtrend. Okay. When we look at the 4 hour, we can see that we are making tentatively higher lows here, and those are printed more so on the 1 hour. So again, if you look at the 1 hour, you can kind of see here that we are making higher lows for the moment. Okay, this is again a bit of a stretch, and I have to reiterate this: the smaller time frame you go, the less likely or less beneficial these trends are. So in that sense, higher lows on the 1 hour isn't half as beneficial as higher lows on the 4 hour. Therefore, we can disseminate here that we'll probably see the price action continue sideways for a little while. The reason why I feel like we might see a green weekend is just based on the fact that we had a very red weekend last weekend, and I think we're less likely, we're going to probably see a lot more folks, just retail or non-whales, so to speak, adding to their position throughout the weekend, because most people get paid on Fridays, and that's another thing that kind of stimulates the market there, essentially. Okay, because again, with a strong red Saturday and Sunday last weekend, I think the probability of it being a green Saturday and Sunday this weekend is fairly high. Again, I wouldn't expect a monstrous increase in value. I really don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that we're going to see 23,000 perhaps, or 24,000 retested in the relative near future, at least within the next week. Because again, we're still stuck in this range for the moment, and until we break this trend here, then we're going to have to kind of keep considering where we're at and the fact that it's going to continue until it doesn't. All right. Isn't that kind of funny? Yeah, it's like kind of so redundant. How is redundant is that, where it's going to continue until it doesn't? Let's take a look at the 4 hour. But you know what? That's funny that the redundancy that I just spoke about is so common and consistent in trading. It's like, trends oftentimes repeat themselves, but they don't have to. There's so many double negatives in this. It's just kind of ridiculous. And what we're doing, honestly, in looking at this, is we're just looking at the big picture and trying to understand, hey, what's the probability of it going either direction? It's never 100% in either direction. At least very rarely will you see like, okay, every single thing is pointing one direction. We're like, at this point, I think we're about 60% probable, based on everything we've seen so far, the price will increase from here in the immediate future. Once again, long term, there's a great chance we can and will break 20,000, the support level here between 19,800 and 20, and essentially see the price action lower. But it shouldn't happen in the immediate future based on the amount of volume we're seeing here at this lower price point. Just building that strong volume base to build on to effectively be able to break this descending trend line eventually. That's essentially what we're doing. So again, don't expect amazing things here from Bitcoin, but I wouldn't anticipate the price action coming tremendously lower just based on the way that everything has been happening the last couple of trading days. It's kind of just shaping up to want to turn itself around. And if we do look at TD sequential as well, actually more specifically on the 1 hour, we can see we've hit these exhaustive states. And so just one last little caveat here, kind of let you know we hit 3 nines in a row to the downside. That tells me that we need a little while for the price action to, I wouldn't say recover, but generally speaking, when you have a push in one direction so hard, so fast, it leaves it exhausted. In other words, the bears have nothing left to sell. That's kind of what's going on. Whereas all we're seeing now is, the retailers buying and selling immediately. So that's why we're kind of stuck in this range-bound activity. But if we look at, of course, we hit an 8 here as well, came down to a 9, got a reset down to a 6. It's kind of telling us here that we should experience somewhat of a reprieve here. I wouldn't say as far as a double bottom, but it is kind of shaping up to do something like that. All right. Once again, I feel comfortable in taking a long position here recently. I wouldn't say, when I say long too, I'm referring to buying low and selling high, not holding on for a long time. Really, because again, with the profit targets, they're not super loose. I would recommend tight profit targets to ensure that you can take profits while you still can in case the price reverses on you, because there's no guarantee it's going to come back up. Another thing to also touch on here as well is right here, this Fibonacci retracement of 22,600. 22.6 is essentially a resistance level at this point. So again, it's tentative for the moment based on the 4 hour, but again, we're shaping up to possibly see an increase and a retest of that level. I think we'll probably see something along those lines this weekend. All right, well, I hope that you did find benefit here, of course. And most of the things that I say make sense. If you want to become a better trader, of course, CryptoCache.tech is a site, link in the description below. Make sure if you reach out, if you have questions to me, make sure you reach out to the contents that's below here. In other words, the comment section, essentially telling you what my contact information is. That's the only contact information you should use. Do not fall into the trap that some people have by responding to people that pose, they change their name and they're complete scammers. I will never direct message you. Okay, I'll respond if you have questions, no problem there. Just letting you know, be cautious and careful. Unfortunately, cryptocurrency is still the Wild West, and we got to respect that. All right, well, I hope you had a great rest of your day, or have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you next one. Take care.